In this lesson, we are going to be beginning the creation of the site for our enemy here. Currently, the way that it sort of looks for an enemy is just being able to check to see is the distance between the enemy and the player less than a certain distance, in which case then it will then pursue. But we want it to actually work as if the enemy is looking from, say, in the front, forward, and maybe a couple different angles, so left, a little right, sort of a cone of vision in which it can see the player. So if the player walks in front of our enemy, then the enemy will pursue. So we need to modify our scan for enemy function just a bit. This is all kind of not what we want, really. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of it. And what we're going to want to do instead is we're going to want to use something called ray casting to actually basically send out an invisible beam that's going to look to see if it collides with our player, and if it does, then that means that we can then pursue the player. So we're going to go ahead and make an array of rays. So I'm going to go ahead and it's going to be using the ray class. It's an array, and it's going to be an array of rays called rays for search. And we're going to go ahead and set this equal to, we're just going to do one ray starting off, but we're going to add more in a minute. But we're going to start off just making this a new array of length 1. So really, we don't really need this yet, but we're going to need it later, so might as well go ahead and put it in here. And we're going to go ahead and create a ray coming from the point that we want to be casting these from, and it's going to, this one's going to have no angle, it's just going to be the straightforward one. So I'm going to say vector 3, and it's going to be no angle. We're going to call it that. And so this is just going to be the direction. This is all we're trying to get here. This is just going to be the direction of the ray we're going to be shooting off. It's going to be shooting off at no angle, going straight forward from our point. So I'm going to call it no angle, and I'm going to get it just by getting the forward direction from the point that we want to use for these rays. Now, I'm going to create a new empty for this. So we're going to need to make a new variable in order to get a reference to this. So public game object. And let's go ahead and call this game object position to look from. So position to look from. Okay. Now let's go down here. And so we're going to get the position to look from dot transform dot forward. That's going to be our direction. Then what we're going to do with that is we are going to add something that's going to be shown during runtime. It's going to be something we can use for debugging, something we can visualize, where is this pointing at. We are actually going to draw a line going in this direction from the point of our position to look at. So I'm going to use the debug class and the function draw line, and I'm going to draw, and see, I need to put a start and end position. So the start position is going to be the position to look from dot transform dot position, and the end position is just going to be this same position dot transform dot position plus our position dot transform dot forward, so that's this direction, which we could also just say no angle. It'd be a shortcut for that, no angle, times a number. So this would be maybe in that direction 20 units, something like that, and that'll work. So let's go ahead and get this part working. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to save this, go back over into Unity, let that compile, and also let's go ahead and check see where this is being used. I'm going to double click that to select it, copy it, Control F to find it. Right now we're calling this here in patrol, and so that's fine for now. We're going to actually want to change this a little bit here in a second, but we just need to be being called while it's patrolling, so that's fine for now. I'll just save that. And let's go ahead and just check this out. Make sure that we are drawing a line. Oh, and of course we have a error because we have not actually assigned anything to that variable position to look from. And I'm actually going to make a new object here. I'm going to make an empty game object. And I'm going to go ahead and position it at 0, 0, 0. And I'm going to find it. It's over here. Okay. Let's go ahead and position our robot at 0, 0, 0 as well. Actually, maybe raise it back up though. Just like that. And select our game object. Now let's position this where we want it to be casting the ray from. So I'm also going to rename it. Right click, rename. Let's rename it to be position to look from, I guess is fine. To look from. And let's go ahead and get it to where we want it to be. So up here and forward. And see this blue arrow? That is what's considered forward. The red arrow is the right, and the yellow arrow is up. So I want to actually not cast this just straight forward, but cast it sort of at an angle downward. So I'm going to move the forward direction so that it's sort of facing more downward. So I'm going to get choose my rotation options here. I'm going to go forward so I can sort of look at this a little bit. There we go. Move this down some, something like that. And now I'm going to go back to the movement tools, and I think that'll be okay. Maybe I want to move it a little bit more up. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. So that'll be fine. Now I want to go ahead and child this to not just our robot, or just not just our enemy at the top layer here, but we want to go into the armature, go into the root, and I'm actually going to child it to the head bone, because remember, the head's going to be turning, so we want this position to turn with it. It's going to change which direction it's looking at. So I'm just going to drop this onto the head bone, so now it's a child of the head bone right in there, so it will move with this. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit, press play, and hopefully not get any errors this time. But I am, so let's go take a look at that. And of course we haven't actually assigned this yet, so that's why we haven't gotten it. So we'll assign that, and go ahead and clear, and now we'll play and see what happens. Cool. So now we can see that we are getting that line drawn from that point forward, so we have the right direction. And with that, we're going to stop there for now. I'll see you in the next lesson.